Hey guys, how's it going? Today we'll be talking about the Hall of Trials preseason. I'm not going to talk about the Hall of Trials because we probably do that when I stream it. And I got two more little things to do. I'm talking about these. The little, I don't know these things, exclusive equipment. Now, these are a game changer for a lot of people. Now, the reason why I like this so far is because it gives a fresh take on some old character that may or may not be good at the time. And even though it's RNG heavy, it could kind of make him slightly better. By slightly mean some of these don't even like these things are helpful, but sometimes they're, let's just say this, they're useful to have. So basically what these things do is they just give you another like addition to some of the stats. I mean some of the skills that the character have, and give them some stats along with it. Let's just look at some of the abilities. So one of them is 50% chance to grant the caster an extra turn when using magic bolts. Now in my opinion, this is pretty good. It's like a better RNL if you think about it. And since Chloe being the fastest water unit, she can essentially use this for PvP and PvE. Cause like, you don't even see Chloe at PvP. Like, you don't even use her PvP because her kit doesn't work. But now I know that if you get that ability, the first exclusive equipment with the magic bolts for a 50% chance for an extra turn, you have a 50% chance to go again. Meaning that you can throw magic nail on them, which I forgot what it does. It's basically Uber's tooth. Damn, and I have a Chloe too. So basically, the nail will do additional damage after you hit them. I think it's like 5% at max health or 3%. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then when you go again, you get immediately S3 for a chance to stun and do a buttload of damage. But usually they won't survive from the magic nail and her S3 alone. In her AI, she will literally use S2 first. So if you use her in defense in GVG, she will use her S2 first because both her S3 and S1 go for magic nails. So it uses first. And then they either will S3 you or they S1 because the AI won't use S3 unless there's a magic nail and or her abilities are down. Just know that. So it's not bad for like GVG or like a defense team because you know Chloe will go 100% at times because that's how probability works when you on a defense team. Out of nowhere, they always get RNLs. So I think the first one is pretty good for PvE and PvP. The second one is to spell all buffs from the enemy when using magic bolt. This effect is applied before inflicting magic nail. So basically it's a strip and it applies the magic nail. By the way, if you awaken Chloe, by the way, her magic nail can't be resisted. So if you're going against somebody that's earth unit, and she's ice, it can't be resisted. A boss can't resist it. Which is pretty strong in itself, but it can miss. So remember, there's a difference between missing and resistance. So I don't got much to say about the spell all buff. It probably come in handy in some PvE situations or PvP situation. But if you're using a magic bolt if you're using Chloe just to apply magic bolt and dispel that buff, then I guess it's okay. I don't know how that could be used in PvP. Maybe my brain is not galaxy brain enough. But PvE, I can see it working for some bosses. And her last one is decrease the enemy defense for 2 turns when using Hyper Strike. Now, I have this on my main account with max attack of a 14%. I do say it makes wavering a little bit easier knowing that it's a 2-turn defense break and her S3 is on a 3 turns? Let me go look at her. Oh, it's a 4-turn. It's a 5-turn cooldown for her S3. Damn, I thought it was... No, -1. Okay, I have -1, by the way. Hers is +5, by the way. My other account is a +5 Chloe. So, it's basically it's a 4-turn cooldown with the -1. Which make it 3 turns. So, basically, you magic nail, which is a 3-turn cooldown. And then you immediately S3, which will do the deeps. Now, I don't know the particular... I forgot how much damage this actually... What is the damage for when they have magic nail? I think it's like 20% more damage or something like that. But anyway, on top of having this thing that give a defense break on her S3, it's pretty great. A 2-turn defense break. So And I see that mainly for PvE, not particularly PvP. Sure, you can use the defense break for PvP, but like sometimes they usually die within Chloe's S3. Now Chloe's ain't bad. I feel like she got two good ones, and one of them is a little situational. Talk about the dispel all buff from enemies, even in PvE situation, because Chloe is kind of a niche character. Like she's just there for Wavering, and she destroys Wavering. There's other uses for her, but you probably use a different DPS than her. So, all right, Rose. She's used a lot more in PvP, as I'm saying, right? Not Shadow Rose, but normal Rose, and a lot more PvP. And I feel like her exclusive equipment is a little bit more viable than Chloe's. Rose's base speed is like 97. If you get a max roll of 10 speed, it should be 107 base. With this exclusive equipment would make her a little bit better in PvP, since people just use it for her. And I think that's her S3, right? Where she applies the shield and give combat ratings and attack up to people. Her S1, I'm pretty sure that's her S1. Activate all effects regardless of health when using sequential cutter. So her S1 is attack with a sword with a 50% to provoke for 1 turn when the caster HP is more than 50%, or increase defense of the caster for 1 turn when the caster HP is less than 50%. Increase damage down, increase proportion to the caster defense. Now this particular exclusive equipment basically means that activate all effects regardless of the health we use a sequential cutter. I don't know why I can't say that word right. So basically, no matter if they're below a half or more than or 50% less than, she will always provoke and gain increased defense on the S1, which is pretty big for just a PvE tank, for the simple fact, and PvP actually. So her S1 is, her first exclusive skill is pretty good. Not gonna lie. Her second ability, Shield of Light, applies the same effect to the caster when using Shield of Light. You guys are probably wondering, why do I keep going back? Because I don't know nothing about Rose, so I can't say nothing about Rose. So her S2 is cover an ally with Shield of Light, dispelling 2 debuffs and granting a barrier for 2 turns before increasing combat ratings by 10%. Barrier's strength is proportional to the caster defense. So her S2 only works for allies. Cover an ally with Shield of Light, dispelling 2 debuffs and granting a barrier for 2 turns before increasing combat ratings by 10%. So that's pretty nice. Now, God of Victory is a 5-turn cooldown that it gives the blessing to all allies, increasing attack for 2 turns and combat readiness by 15%. If you get it a +3 skill enhance, it's -1, we'll make it a 4-turn. If you get that thing, it's another -1 and it becomes 3 turns. Essentially, when you use it, it's a 2-turn cooldown for when you can use it again. Now, that is pretty helpful. I'm gonna say majority pretty helpful in PvE than it is PvP. For the simple fact that PvP content don't usually last as long, where you use her S3 over and over again, unless she's like super fast. Depending on how fast the knight is, I guess if you run with a healing lance, so she constantly keep recycling her abilities. But PvP usually don't last that long if you're using Rose, because usually you see her in a cleave team, and she usually will use her S3 once, and then the cleave is dead and everything's dead, unless you're facing like super brick house opponents. I don't see this being as useful in PvP. It can be, like I said, with healing lance and she's really fast, but as again, I see this being used more in PvE, because the longer the fight goes, on top of giving increased attack and barrier, she's more of those make her more of a support tank than anything else, and I think that's pretty awesome actually. Having a 2-turn cooldown, they give combat readiness and attack buff. It's pretty dope. On top of that, hers gives speed, so Rose's things are actually pretty good. Actually, all of them make her a better knight actually, so if you have Rose and plan on using her, I highly suggest you get these. All of them. Get all of them in case you might need them, because all 3 of them are actually pretty dope. Actually, I have a Destina. I have one of them, and one of them I can't use it because I'm too lazy to actually get the 5th Awakening. But what I gotta say right now, her exclusive equipment gives effective resistance between 8 to 16%, which make her a little bit less likely to be CC'd. So what her abilities are? Her abilities are key to an oath. Dispel one debuff from an ally with the lowest health when using oath key. Now, this I can see be using for, I don't know, let's say anything that has CC in it, and it's pretty good unless, you know, the one person that has low HP is about to die or is getting one-shotted, and I think it's random at that point. So it's not a bad ability per se, but it's very niche. As in, not only do they have to be, you know, the lowest HP, only reason I say niche is because like they have to be the lowest health when using the oath key. I don't know what to say about this one. It's pretty good for. I see people make it work with PvP. Give Destina a counter set and just let her just go to town, just removing debuffs at the debuff and healing people with the lowest HP. But this doesn't do anything if they're dead. So, alright, the next one, regen. Increase the target combat radius by 20% when using regen. Now, basically, if you get this regen, increase the combat radius by 20%, it's basically become a 50% 3-turn heal, which is pretty good if you think about it. Because 50% combat radius is half a turn. So if they just use their move and Destina go next, and are really close to like go again, you basically use. Think of auxiliary lots, but a very budget auxiliary lots at that point. 50% combat radius is pretty dope. Not gonna lie, that is a pretty good ability. There's not much to say, it's just give them 20% more CR. Since her cooldowns are 3 turns, you can't really use it as often because, like I said, she's a pretty slow girl unless you build her with a bunch of speed. But I can see this being used in PvP. When you have it's a dizzy, just heal them and then let them go again. He has a lot of combat radius for a kid already. So, her third ability, Destina's Grace, decrease skill cooldown on Destina's Grace by 1 turn. Now, this may not seem like a huge thing, but it's pretty huge on top of being, since Destina has problem with like a bunch of abilities being high cooldown and she can't heal as often. Like, let's say like Montmorency that has like a 2-turn cooldown heal and a 1-turn cooldown or a no-turn cooldown depending on if she's debuffed or not. This is pretty dope. Having -1 on her S3. So Destina S3 is on a 6-turn cooldown. You're going to see where this is going. And if you enhance it to +3, it becomes 5 turns. With that effect, it becomes a 4-turn cooldown. And then when you use it, it goes on cooldown and becomes 3 turns. So meaning that the next 3 turns, she doesn't have a heal. Besides her S2, which is also a 3-turn cooldown. Essentially, it makes her a better PvE healer for the most part. And a PvP healer too. But I feel like that is the best one for Destina since her cooldown on her S3 is so long. Sure, you have 50% combat radius if you plan on using for like PvE, but the -1 cooldown on her S3 is pretty huge since she suffered from high cooldown, 6 turns. I think that's the highest in the game. I think it was Ball and Suzanne that was 6 turns, but they just reduced it like to 3 turns or 4 turns. But that is pretty helpful considering how slow Destina is. Like if you look at her speed, besides the chest speed I have on her speed is 89 speed. I think she's the slowest in the game. She's a slug actually. She has like no cardio. Alright, last one is Silk. W.Silk. Now, I do not have this character, so I will be going to the book instead. So her exclusive equipment gives 5 to 10 speed, meaning that it's pretty helpful. Now, W.Silk is 106 speed base, and that gives between 5 to 10. So if you get maximum, then it's 116. Would make her a pretty fast unit actually. Hell, even at 5 stars, she still get 112 speed. So I'd say if you have her 5 stars, she'd be a pretty fast unit. So the first one, I think this is her S2. Like I said, I don't have a Silk. Automatic fire. Grant the caster an extra attack regardless whether the enemy is debuffed when using automatic fire. Now her S2, since like I said, I don't have W.Silk or don't know anything about her. Fires a volley of arrows at the enemy, decreasing combat radius by 10%. Has a 50% chance of granting an extra turn of the same kind, increasing by an additional 50% when the enemy is debuffed. Damage is dealt proportional to caster's speed. And her solo effect is granting an extra turn. So it basically eliminates the fact of just putting a debuff on a unit, which is pretty great. I say it sounds like more like this regular Silk, where she can like sober her S1 and just shoot again, but except that they don't need to be debuffed and you can just shoot again, which is pretty good. On top of that, it reduced their combat radius by 10%. So what's that, 20% if it goes again, if it does the same effect? 20% combat radius debuff on an S2? Not bad. Not bad at all. You can definitely use that in PvP because it also helps with damage, but not bad at all. Her S3 Shock Arrow. Dispel one buff from the enemy when use a Shock Arrow. This effect is applied before inflicting silence. So another thing that sounds good for PvP, it dispels one buff from the enemy, use a Shock Arrow. And it's applied before inflicting silence. So W.Silk S3 is this is what Awakening. Shoots an arrow infused with the power of lightning, inflicting silence and make them unhealable for 2 turns. And decrease combat radius to 0. Damage that of course increase proportion to caster's speed. Now, it said it removes one debuff, one buff, meaning that if they have like 3 or 4 buffs, it's gonna be pretty hard, especially in PvP, to like get the one that you want. Like let's say an Angelica that has like immunity and like a barrier, then it's a 50% chance to either get an immunity or remove the barrier. It would suck if you remove the barrier because you just did enough damage, or you just do enough damage during it. But I don't know. I gotta see how that one goes. Removing a buff is pretty beneficial. It'd be great. It'd be really good if you remove all buffs. Her last one, Shock Arrow. Increase the speed of all allies for 2 turns when using Shock Arrow. Now, this is basically just normal Silk's, S3. If you guys don't know what normal Silk does, it's basically reduce the speed of the enemy and then increase the speed of your team. So basically make you look like you're faster than the enemy. Except that her S3 does not debuff the enemy team with minus speed, except that it gives them silence and non-buffable. Now this is, I feel like this is more used for PvE for the simple fact that she now has utility for your team by just giving them speed buff. So it's pretty good for the most part. I do like what they're doing with these exclusive equipment instead of just doing like a big rework. And people say, "Oh no, the character's garbage now." Just give them like the character's garbage now. They're just giving them like small buffs in areas, and it'll just give you some more time to play with some of the heroes. Unfortunately, this thing is limited between having these Scrolls of Wisdoms or the Book of Retributions, and or buying them for
What do you think?
120 Sky Stones, 5 out of 5 each week. So you can pretty much save these up, and I'm pretty sure you get 1 each week, I think they said. So you can pretty much save these up until you're ready to just farm a bunch of them at the same time for a unit that you want. Hell, that's what I'm probably gonna be doing for it if they actually come out with something for Assassin's Sid. I'm waiting. Hope you guys like this video. I'm gonna go back to farming now because I really need some gear, and I am at the point where I need gear for everybody. See you guys around. Bye.